Greetings and welcome to my channel. This is Servitor. You can also find me on Facebook in the Sorcerers Guild. Today on Magical Theory, we are going to be getting more in depth on the creation of servitors. Now, as I've said previously, a servitor is typically a temporary being that is more focused on its intent than its form and works on the intent, form, charge, release model. Okay, so that is your basic servitor. And it is simply created in your mind, given a intent and a basic form, sent to achieve its purpose, and then released so that it can go and fulfill that task. It's more of a computer program than actual intelligent life. It's as a yes or no capability, and that's about it with your typical servitor. Now, above that, there are three very specific types of advanced servitors. There are many others. I'm not saying these are the only types, but there are three types that can be easily identified. Okay, the first type is the replicating servitor. These are very common. This is usually just created so as a typical servitor would be, but then it is given a sigil as well and is housed in the sigil until certain criteria are met, which cause the energy in that sigil to then create the servitor. It'll go out, perform its task, and dissipate back into the sigil and lay dormant until then that particular criteria has been met again. Often these will be put on a room to keep people out of a room as a type of ward. People also have used them as tattoos, and when they touch the tattoo, the servitor will then come out, perform its function, and then go back into the tattoo. Though, as a couple of examples. Above that, you have your group servitor. And these are essentially thought forms and are going to be created anytime that people plan an activity together. There will start to be a servitor or being that comes around that task or that group purpose of any type. Even if you don't name it, even if you don't acknowledge its presence, it's going to be there. Every group on Facebook has a servitor. If you haven't created that energy into an egregore like we've done in the Sorcerers Guild, or formed it in some other way, you will have a group servitor. It's kind of just the momentum of the group. These are not self-aware things. They're just a thought form that picks up a momentum and a bit of intent of its own and just kind of goes with the overall collective consciousness of the group. That's part of what causes these group think scenarios that you hear about people in crowds, is these group servitors. Okay, and the last one that we're going to talk about are minions. And they are actually kind of related to the idea of the group servitor, but rather than being the group servitor, this is when you have created the group servitor and are in control of it. Now, I'm not suggesting that you use this to take control of crowds. However, that might be an interesting experiment that could be performed. But what we were talking about now is creating a hive mind within a species with a much shorter lifespan than our own. I, for example, have done this with both Daphnia, which is a small type of water flea that hatches in ponds and anywhere like that, but their eggs are able to dry out. And what you do is you take those eggs and you perform magic over top of them before they are hatched and attach a servitor to the embryonic life within the eggs of the Daphnia, and then hatch them on your altar and grow them under the conditions of that they are constantly being pumped with servitor souls into the new generations in each life. And you want to actually increase this group think so that the minions on the altar, as you will call, as I call them, begin influenced by it and create a sort of hive mind directed by the servitor, which is then under your control. This can also be done with yeast, and that is a more common scenario. I've met a few people that have used yeast as created minions to perform tasks for them. The interesting part with these minions is that these are actual living beings, And then once you have them, you actually just take some of them that you need to perform a task, tell the servitor what you want them to do, and release those minions in the area that you want them to perform that task. And they then go and perform that task. They are then released, go and perform that task, and dissipate back into the larger collective consciousness or servitor of the Daphnia or yeast tank on your altar. Okay, so that will be that for today's episode. Thank you once again for joining us. Don't forget to join us on Friday, where I will be doing a demonstration on how to create servitor minions. Thank you once again for joining us. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please take the opportunity to do so now. Until then, bright blessings and an interesting fate. This has been Sorcerer Tal.